In a world full of boring stories, bad videos, and marketing misinformation, one very tall man with a weird last name will use his microphone,
Is this thing on?
use his video marketing knowledge,
The red button, right?
and use his friends
Please be on the show.
to change that. You are listening to the Garlic Marketing Show with Ian. What? No, that's how you pronounce it. Well, if you say so, your host, Ian Garlic.
Welcome to the Garlic Marketing Show. Ian Garlic here, and we have an awesome guest today. Once again, I've been getting some great ones, and this one today we're going to talk about apps, where they are in 2019, how to build one. They're building amazing ones. Before I get started, a little promo from our sponsor. You know, if you're looking to sell your app or become an authority because of an app, online video can help you a lot. The problem is which videos to create, how to videos format, who will shoot them, and who will edit them. Go to storycruise.com. Whether you're looking for a videographer near you that understands your marketing strategy, go to StoryCruise. Or you need a simple executable video strategy, go to StoryCruise, or find an editor, go to StoryCruise. It's your ultimate resource for video marketing. Christopher White is our guest today from the sneaker agency in New York City. Thanks for being here. I'm super excited. And if you guys hear any sounds, it is the genuine sounds of the city. Watching the video, you can see straight up north. You can see all of beautiful New York. And Chris, thanks so much for being on the show.
Hey, man, super excited to be here. Really, really grateful. Looking forward to talking apps, man.
Yeah. So, I mean, apps, you know, it's funny because obviously, you know, 7-8 years ago, it was like everyone had to have an app. And then it's been up and down and up and down. Where do you see this? Let's talk a little bit about who you've worked with, because so people understand that you are an expert in apps. So tell me a little bit about the types of companies that you've helped build apps for.
Yeah, well, we work with a number of different types of clients. We work with startups, enterprise clients, and we also work with agencies. And so through those different relationships, we've done work with folks such as PepsiCo. We're currently working with a bigger name fitness brand, sort of a little under NDA right now, soon to be launched. So we're getting into more of that side of the space, particularly with Android, as there's a bigger shift now for people playing some catch up on the Android side of the spectrum. We've recently been working with The Infatuation on redoing their iOS app, which has been a really fun and challenging project. But yeah, those would be just a few.
Yeah, I mean, those are some big names. And later on in the show, we're going to talk about what goes into really making an app that works. Chris and I were talking about before, you know, what's really important right now. But let's talk a little bit about the state of the app market. Who should be building apps, and, you know, what's really working in apps and getting downloads and users and all that stuff?
I think that there definitely was a correction in the app space. As you sort of hinted 7-8 years ago, everybody and their grandmother needed an app. So I think right now there's been a couple key consolidations. One is that for a lot of industries, things have just consolidated around platforms. So, if you're in a restaurant, you probably don't have your own app anymore. You're just making sure that your restaurant's on all the different platforms. So you're on Resy, et cetera, et cetera. But then I do think that there are still unique situations for brands that you wouldn't expect, like Dollar Shave Club. They have an app. It's actually a really cool app. What does it do? It actually has a lot of content, a lot of great content. Dollar Shave Club does, a great job with their product. But when you get their product, they have like a cool little printed, like sort of little thing in the box. But they've also been translating that to like a fun digital experience too. So I think even for brands where you don't engage, you wouldn't think to engage with a brand like that all the time. Like you just set up your subscription and forget it. You could still, if you need to, manage your subscription via their app, but you could also actually get a lot of good, fun, engaging content. So that I think is one direction that some bigger brands are going into. I think augmented reality is, we discussed a little bit prior to the show, is really interesting, particularly in the fashion space. There are some really cool apps where you can basically try on sneakers virtually. Have you ever tried one of these?
I have not. Can you give me a name of a couple?
Yeah. You got to try. Check out Wanna Kicks. WANNA space Kicks. Pretty mind blowing stuff. Like you can pretty much hold your phone like over your feet and just like swipe through and like try on different sneakers. And it's pretty amazing how accurate it is in terms of like lining it up with your feet. It gets a little janky, if you move your foot or if you're near things, but overall, like the quality of it's pretty wild. So I think that the commerce space is going to change a lot with respect to its relationship to mobile over the coming next couple of years as well. And then, as I sort of hinted at before, I think that there's a big shift for folks to make sure that they're doing a really good job on Android as well. I think that that's a big piece of momentum that we see too. There's definitely a lot of brands that typically launch first on iOS, and that's still very common today even. Even though Apple isn't like even the top seller of smartphones, most people still, at least here in the States, would want to develop their phone for their app for iPhones first. But given how large of a population there are of Android users, both growing here in the States but also internationally, I think a lot of brands are now starting to pay a lot more attention to Android.
Obviously Android's growing. The app market is still there. And so I want to get into augmented reality in a little bit, but who do you think should really be developing an app that maybe isn't, or, and if we can talk industry or, or even specific companies, who do you think should be developing apps that probably isn't and should be thinking about it in a different way?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. I think I don't know. I'd have to go back to even my Dollar Shave Club example of like a direct-to-consumer brand. I think a lot of direct-to-consumer brands are just thinking about web right now. I think there's a lot of value that they could be bringing to their users via mobile apps. So that would be, doing it via website is just a no-brainer. You have to have your website, and usually people that want to place their orders via those sites and stuff. But tying that back to a mobile experience of some sort as well, I think has a lot of value for these brands.
That makes a lot of sense too, because then, because it's the customer acquisition is so important and staying in contact with them. And then, and you can, like a lot of people get most of their alerts from their apps.
Exactly. The push capabilities alone, there's things that you can do with a mobile app that are just really hard to do on web, or that you can do via mobile web but they're just kind of janky, So, I think for those kind of brands, they're probably going to step up and start doing more stuff in that space. I think there's a lot of, room in the co-working space for mobile apps. WeWork's a big player. I think they've done a great job of building out like their whole digital ecosystem. And so I think a lot of the other like co-working spaces that are trying to compete with WeWork need to like probably step up a lot of their game, and especially on the mobile side. They've really done a great job of like even onboarding you, activating your key card. Like you can pretty much do like anything via like your WeWork mobile app. So I would say that space. I think real estate is an interesting, sort of general space. There's definitely players in that world who've been established for a while now here in New York, Street Easies and stuff like that. But a lot of them haven't updated their technology in a while, and younger users don't really like them as much. So I think there's definitely still more room for disrupting things in the real estate space that probably ties back to maybe some different types of business models that people want to do in the real estate space. But I think that there's, definitely opportunity there. Travel is also really interesting. I think that you're going to start seeing a lot smarter types of travel experiences via mobile, where it's more curated for you, using machine learning or AI, coming up with ways to sort of take the pain out of planning trips and travel. I think you're going to see a lot of movement in the travel space too on mobile.
So, and let's talk a little bit about augmented reality, AR, because I think it's one of those things that's really cool. If you haven't seen it, that's basically where you can. Well, I'll have you describe it because you're probably better at describing it to me.
Sure. Yeah, I describe augmented reality as, a situation where using your phone, you're able to see something in the real world that's not actually there.
Mm-hmm.
Probably like the most simple, non-technical way that I can describe it. And so, as I was noting before, now with say like beauty apps and fashion apps, you're able to see how sneakers would look on your feet, without them actually being there in reality. And it's getting pretty realistic, pretty good quality. And it's only going to keep improving. Makeup apps, they're letting you just put on a whole facial makeover, completely within an app-driven experience with no physical makeup whatsoever. So I think it's bridging, something that you want to see in real life with just what you can see and do on your phone. That makes augmented reality really interesting. Services like House, where you can sort of design rooms, using virtual reality, lay out the dimensions of the room, place furniture in it, all of these types of things companies are doing. And they're definitely going to just keep, they're going to keep pushing the boundaries on this stuff. And soon enough, probably the bigger brands will sort of pick up on it and try to play catch up too.
Yeah. And I think, one of the examples I saw too, I don't know if you've seen this, is 19 Crimes Wine did a great job with it. And because they took they augmented they use an app, right? But they also told stories on each of the labels and combine video with the app so that you can look, and now you have a video and you have storytelling, and it really engages and brings that brand to a whole new level. It's really, really cool. And that brings me to another question. Obviously, I'm big into video marketing. Video is a discussion that we had, and that's how we met. How do you see video being used now? What are the keys to really creating great video inside of an app?
Yeah, wow, that's that's
two big questions.
Giving me the easy ones. I think that video on mobile, short form content is always best. A couple minutes tops, people seem to like and respond to. That said, I sometimes watch Netflix movies on the way home on the subway. They, a lot of the video platforms have gotten a lot better at buffering content, and so you can be underground for quite a while, and it'll just keep playing, and when it gets to the next station, it'll just keep buffering. So depending on your platform, if it's long form video, I think you want to have creative ways to buffer content for people or let them take stuff offline. Even for kids, that's a big plus. You have limited data plans. For other social media apps, I think it's always best to try and focus on short form content. And then, I don't know, newer areas like 360 video, I don't know as much about it. I think those areas are still coming into the fore. And unfortunately, I think you need more headset gear stuff and other things for those. But I'm definitely curious on where things like that are going to go, or if it'll just continue to be more of a novelty since you sort of need more hardware associated with it sometimes.
Yeah. That's one of those things you never know what's going to take off, but I think it's important to be thinking about video. So let's talk a little bit about what goes in, like, how do you create a great app? And when someone comes to work with Sneaker Agency and wants to create an app, what's the process to making sure it's an effective, fantastic outcome?
Mm-hmm. Well, we start with a very detailed discovery process. The key is really to understand their business goals. If I had to put it in the most simple terms, I think that when people do struggle with apps, they sometimes forget that this is should all be tied back to a business, especially if they're a startup. You really want to be clear on what your actual business goals are, because the app shouldn't be your business goal. The app is a solution. It's a window into like your product or your service, but at the end of the day, that should be one component of like your overall like sort of business. Work to dig into that with clients, make sure that they understand it fully, that they get us to understand it, and then from there deduct like, okay, what are going to be the top app goals that we need to focus on, given their business goals. And so that happens during the discovery process. And we're constantly tuning and refining that process and trying to bring more user research into that initial discovery, doing more user journey mapping with clients. Again, really trying to understand, like, all right, those are your business goals. These are the app goals. Like, how do we get a user from A to B? Like, they download the app. How do we get them as efficiently as possible to like do what you actually want them to do? So that is all of the initial discovery and design. There's sort of technical scoping that happens during that process as well. Then really, once you get into the like development phase, it really comes down to being on top of product requirements and user acceptance testing criteria. You really have to work hard to be as clear up front as you can with those things, so that one, the engineers know what they're supposed to be building, and two, so how to verify and test it. Where things can go off the rails during the engineering process in the build process is if you haven't done a good enough job really pinning down those types of user acceptance criteria for all the different features of the app. So once we sort of do discovery and design, do the product build, the final piece for us is the launch phase, working with a client to get everything ready for the App Store. If they need it, trying to help them with, like App Store imagery, or giving them at least suggestions on that stuff if they have their own designers. So that's sort of the final fit and finish and launch phase of the process. And then from there, if somebody has a longer backlog of things they wanted to do, maybe we keep building in new features, or they may just go more into like a maintenance mode. But those are like sort of all the key components of like the product lifecycle, the initial like product lifecycle.
And what, when someone comes to you for the first time and they've got this app idea, which everyone has one, everyone has an idea for an app. What do you see as the biggest mistakes that people are making if they actually have a good app idea? Where do you see their biggest mistakes in planning and getting this thing ready to go?
I would say biggest mistake is underestimating the amount of time and financial investment that's going to be required from their end. It definitely is something where even if you're working with an agency, you're going to have to be very involved in the process. And as it turns out, it may seem counterintuitive. It's oftentimes actually like a solo founder who can be like difficult to work with because they're just strapped for time, and we need their input. We need their time. So, often my key suggestions are to try and find a good product manager, someone you can bring on for equity, somebody who can handle the product side of things so that, you can focus on the business and fundraising. Two, being conservative with your financial estimates, working with your agency to understand not only what is it really going to cost to build, this initial version, but what is it going to cost to market it? What is it going to cost to sell it and maintain it? Once your product goes live and is out in the world, a lot of times that's when the real work begins. You have people using it. You've got to market it. You've got to get it in front of people. They're probably not just going to find it themselves. If it's a enterprise B2B app, you may actually need a sales team to actually, do cold outreach and drum up interest along with whatever digital marketing you're doing. If it's an extensive service or something that does like video, for instance, you're going to have your budget for content distribution, keeping servers up and running, paying for engineering time and design for, updates. So, it gets pretty involved and pretty expensive. And I think, time and money are just sort of two things that I see folks underestimate all the time when they're going down this path of building like a new product.
Yeah, I can imagine that, because because you're making really slick, simple looking apps, but that's the hardest thing to make, right?
Yeah. You see like, I don't know, like 8-9 screens, but there's a lot of planning and design and engineering that, went into that, including whatever's happening behind the scenes with database, server, content distribution, all of that stuff come together, is what really drives the app, if you want it on web as well, that gets more expensive. Some people want it on both. Some people still just go mobile first. So I think that, in this day and age, if you want to build something of quality, you really have to have your business hat on and remind yourself that, you're building a business, not just an app. That's typically how I describe it to people.
Interesting. Yeah. And so let's talk about, you have an example here of app. We're going to share it here. If you're listening, you can go to YouTube and the link will be in the show notes because we're going to share a video, or not share a video, but share a screen of the Pinata app here. So this was one of your ones. Tell me a little about this project here and what went into it. Yeah. What, how did you plan it? And how did you gauge success?
Yeah, so this is a unique project because they had started going down the path of trying to put together this whole product, and they were struggling because they sort of were in an analysis paralysis mode, I would call it. And so we came in, it's probably a couple of years ago now, and helped sort of work with them to come up with their first minimum viable product. Their platform was designed to connect like brand ambassadors with brands so that they could do like on-demand, on-site, like brand marketing and promotions. And so, it's a challenging concept because it's a two-sided marketplace. It's got location aspects to it, payment, outgoing payments involved with it. Brands have requirements for what people need to wear, so it's a pretty involved process overall. And, they were struggling, and, it's not trivial to figure out, an ideal way to get all this going. And so we sat down with them. We really had made them really sit down and map out the absolutely essential like requirements and features of the app, which took a little time, probably took a couple weeks to like really iron that out. Some people had to give up stuff that was on their wish list. I always tell people that you're just not going to get everything you want in your first version, right? So had a lot of hard, long conversations, really was able to narrow down the app to like, okay, well, at the end of the day, brands have to post available gigs and ambassadors need to be able to sign up and find those gigs. So let's focus on that. Let's focus on a web experience that lets brands like post available gigs. Let's focus on a mobile experience that lets brand ambassadors sign up, find brands that they want to work with, apply for those, go work the gig, and get paid. So, we help streamline that whole process from cradle to grave, and then work with them on the design and the build out and the launch.
Cool. Yeah. And I mean, that's one thing people are like, oh, I just want an app that does this and this. And you don't think about all the processes involved.
Right. Cause like here, there's two sides, right? You've got the brands who need help and the people who want to help. And so what you see in the mobile app is one part of it. There's all this other stuff on the back end, or what we call like the admin, where all these other parts of the system are happening. Like, how are you getting gigs into the system so that people can actually, apply to them? So we really work to educate clients that, they're building a business and they're building a system. This app is a window into their system, but they really need to have a systems level type of thinking, because there could be multiple components to the entire thing. Users are just downloading the app, but there's usually a lot of other stuff going on behind the scenes. Yeah,
especially for something this complex, because I can imagine how long this takes. So now tell me, all right, how is Pinata doing? How did you measure success with this?
Well, with startups, a lot of times we measure success by whether or not they're able to raise more money and bring on their own team, and they were definitely successful in doing that. I think they've since pivoted and gone into, I'd have to look at some of the stuff they're doing right now. They basically tested out this whole model. Mm-hmm. They weren't too happy with like just the traction for it, or I guess logistically it was just a lot harder to pull off. I think signing up the brands proved to be difficult. Part of the model was that, they would get brands to go away from using traditional agencies who just did this type of stuff, like brand promotion, and instead get those brands to like sort of use their platform directly. And I think that was like maybe a bigger ask than brands were ready for. So they've sort of since pivoted, and it built more of like, I don't know if it's a SaaS product. I'd have to check on the current stuff they're doing. But that's part of the way this stuff goes, right? You have to be willing to potentially pivot if you think you need to. That's why we really try to focus on getting clients to build something fast, effective, so they can get it out into the market and actually test it.
Yep. Well, I mean, I'm looking at their website right now, and it looks like, that it's been used by Nike and Pepsi and General Mills and Patron. So, it's that they've definitely moved the needle. So, they got a great team, and we always love taking on additional work from startups, but if they can, actually get their own team, that's great too. So let's, when it's, no matter what someone's building, we were talking before the show about what really is important for them to think about, no matter what. And you were talking about that initial user experience. Why is that so important, and how do you make it work?
I think it's really important because first impressions matter, with anything in life. And that's your first impression. That's the first time somebody's going to experience your service, your product. And so you have to think about that as its own unique thing when you're thinking about your app. And why do I say that? Well, let's say that you are a social media platform. Social media platforms are dependent upon having more than one person doing stuff together. So as part of your onboarding experience, if you haven't thought about that, you might go and build this thing where somebody signs up, they get thrown into some homepage, and they haven't been encouraged to invite people to use it. They don't really know what it's supposed to be doing for them. And then you've just lost not only that user, but all of their potential friends. So you have to understand that is a very unique time where you've got maybe I don't know, 20, 30 seconds to help somebody decide if they really want to keep using your app or not. So we work with clients to really focus on that. What's the most important things on the home screen? What are the things that we need to collect from users during some sort of onboarding? Can we get users to understand the app just from like some landing graphics or information? Those are a lot of the things that we work with clients on, because I don't know, for whatever reason, it's easy to forget. You sign up for an app, you use it. Like, I've been using Instagram, I don't know, for like a gazillion years. I haven't gone through their onboarding process in a long time.
Yeah.
But presumably they've improved it, they've updated it, they've done a lot of work. So a lot of times actually we'll look at other apps and their onboarding, and even sign up as a new user and see like what are some apps that we've used for years now doing to improve, the future retention rates for their app users.
That's critical. And what are the keys? What are the 2 or 3 things that you absolutely think that every onboarding process needs?
Mm-hmm. I think a very clear landing screen. We call that like just the first screen that a user would see. Typically that's got your sign up or your sign in, but just really, really clear sign up instructions, and maybe give them a little overview of the app. A really great onboarding experience where you're getting the essential information you need, trying to get some information you'd like to have but don't need, and letting people skip over those. Yeah. And 3, just a great home screen experience. Once they've taken the time to sign up, once they've taken the time to get through your onboarding, giving them something to see, even if it's another call to action, because maybe you still don't have everything you need, as opposed to an empty experience. At least you're giving them some sort of call out that there's like something else you need them to do to, get utility from the app.
And what are the big mistakes that we can avoid in the onboarding or on the home screen even?
Yeah. I would say having too many things on your home screen. You really want to keep that a clean experience, a clean feed of information. That really should be the place where users go by default to do anything with your app. The other stuff, user profile, search, maybe whatever, notifications, put that stuff in other tabs, but focus your home screen on the stuff that whenever somebody comes to this app, like what are they going to want to see most quickly and do the most often? Like keep your home screen focused on those things. And that's not always easy, but that's the way you should think about it.
Awesome. Well, this has been fantastic information. Chris, if you have any last piece of advice, someone's on the fence about building an app or, which direction to go, what would be the final thoughts that you'd give them?
I would say, oh man.
I'm giving you all the hard questions.
I would say, yeah, man. I would say product development's a lot of fun. It's not without its challenges. If you've never built a digital product before, it's a humbling but really fun experience. I would say that if you've definitely never raised money before, you really want to do your research, really understand the way that money, fundraising works, and don't get in over your head. I would say start out small. If you have a little bit of money, maybe just do some design prototyping. Don't go building all this stuff, yet. Once you start building stuff, it gets expensive, so be smart. Even if you don't have a lot of money and you're bootstrapped, there's still like really effective things that you can do to push the ball forward and like help yourself raise more money and keep validating your idea. So, I would always just be aware of the situation you're in and get as much as you can out of it. There's always something you can do more effectively, So if you've got your first to $50,000, like you probably want to invest that in more research, doing some design prototyping. You probably don't want to go spending all that on building technology because you're going to burn through that pretty fast. So that would probably be my parting wisdom.
All right. That's awesome advice because, I mean, a lot of people just want to go straight to the development. And I think that's a great way to manage that cash flow.
It's cash flow, man. Cash flow.
It's so important. It is important. Apps are expensive, but the payoff is big, as we've seen.
Yeah.
Christopher, thank you so much for being on the show. It's been a lot of fun talking about apps. And if you guys want to find out more about Sneakers Agency, just go to sneakersagency.com and you can see all their work. And then if someone wants to work with you, there's a get a quote button. Is that the best way to get in touch?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just click on the get a quote, fill in some key details, and we'll be in touch.
Beautiful. Well, thanks again, buddy. And I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And thank you all for listening to Chris and I taking us on your journey. This has been Ian Garlic and the Garlic Marketing Show. Video. You know it will make you an authority. You know it will get you more leads, better leads that close faster and spend more with you. And video stories will help you be remembered and connect with those perfect clients. The problem is, where do you start? Storycruise.com is the place to go. It's like a film crew with an S. What's your strategy? Do you do it yourself? Do you hire a videographer, an agency? Do you need an editor? How do you know if they really know your business and how to make videos for business that work? The answer to all of this and more can be found at storycruise.com. It is the place to find the latest video marketing strategies, the best gear for your business, as well as videographers, editors, and agencies near you that are trained in video storytelling for business. Go to storycruise.com/garlic to get special insider info for listeners of the Garlic Marketing Show, including special access to several of my courses, including my case story course. Go to storycruise.com/garlic to get a whole bunch of special offers just for listeners of the Garlic Marketing Show. Whether you're looking for a videographer or to do it yourself, go to storycruise.com/garlic to get started today.
That's it for the Garlic Marketing Show. If you want to get the inside scoop and the latest techniques, make sure to follow Ian Garlic on Facebook.